From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine on Tuesday night. I'm Ben Hall. Good show tonight. We're talking about jobs here in Nashville. And we want to hear from you. What do you think the job situation is either in Nashville or wherever you may be in Middle Tennessee? How is your job search going? What do you think the employment situation is? Certainly want to hear your story. Happy to have with us Matt Lowney, career advisor. Thank you for being with us once again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So as we start out, I like to just talk about unemployment numbers.
Right.
So how are we doing? How are we compared to last year? You know, where do we stand?
So, yeah, we'll start with like Nashville, Middle Tennessee, so Davidson County, and really has a low unemployment rate, 4.1% now. And Williamson County always just a little bit better, so they're at 3.7. But as far as kind of the unemployment figures in Middle Tennessee, we're in pretty good shape. And at a state level, we always do a little, I would say, worse, if you will, than the national average. So the state's about 5.8% in the last month, and the U.S. unemployment is 5.5. So they're not vastly different numbers, but that's typically the story. We're usually just a little high of kind of national average, but here in Middle Tennessee, we're always very fortunate. It seems to be significantly lower than the national average.
So let's take the national 5.5%.
Yep.
How is that? To put in perspective, is that unusually good, or what is it?
It's probably about as good as it's been in the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, we suffered through a recession in the midst of that, but I think, you know, that's where you'd like to be, maybe a little low, under that. But I mean, I remember the late 90s, we almost had negative unemployment. I think they think kind of full unemployment is about 3.5%. 4%. It's kind of that where they kind of look at it and go, that's about everybody who can be employed is employed. So we're kind of inching that direction, but we're still, you know, moving in the right direction. This time last year we were at 0.7% more than where we were, so we're kind of over 6.5% this time last year. So you're kind of seeing it in the right direction. And Nashville, we're doing a fairly good job.
5.5% does sound really good.
Yep.
Here in Nashville and Davidson County, 4.1%. Williamson County, 3.7%.
Yep.
So that does sound like almost everybody who wants a job has a job.
Sure.
Now, is the other part of this, obviously the other part of this must be the type of jobs they're getting.
So there's that. I mean, and I don't have statistics. I mean, there's obviously the dynamics of there's still, particularly if you're a recent grad, there's still particularly a high unemployment rate around recent grads. They haven't, you know, whatever we haven't solved for that. You still have kind of flat income. I mean, there's still these, you know, it's great to have more people employed, but really it's stagnant wages, and all of those dynamics are still going on. But then there's some segments that you can't find enough people. I mean, you literally have negative unemployment in segments like IT. I mean, you just have more jobs, you have people to do it, and if you're the person who does that work, it's a great place to be, because the next employer is always going to pay you more than the last. And so there's always going to be, so IT is hot, has been for the last decade, but particularly here around healthcare, IT is really strong. Obviously, healthcare, direct, patient care is always going to be strong. So you still have some pockets of folks who are struggling. There is no doubt about that. But as a person that's in the recruiting field day in and day out, it's a good time to be a recruiter. I mean, there's a lot. I always kind of look at us as indicators of the economy. And so everybody that I know is a recruiter has a job. They have multiple job offers right now. They can go look for other jobs. So it's a really good place to be, you know, I think, in terms of our employment dynamics.
Oh, that's good as a recruiter.
Yeah.
Does it also mean that employees are getting more power?
Yeah.
In a sense, what we've seen is wages have been fairly stagnant. Are we going to continue to see that? Or is now, with unemployment at this rate,
sure,
do you think it'll mean wages start going up?
It always has to. I mean, the pressures are going to be such that supply and demand is such that it's going to have to. You're going to have a situation where salaries are going to continue to increase. You've got other factors going on, like cost of living in Nashville is increasing. So you have all these dynamics. If more people want to be here, there's more jobs. Employers are really struggling, particularly around key skill sets and finding people that can do the work. And so those dynamics have to be shifting. And you think at some point, fundamentally, they're going to shift. Now, that's not really reflective of, say, somebody that's a low or no skill worker. So I'm kind of, there's that dynamic. The person working at, a fast food restaurant,
right?
That's not really kind of the dynamic here. I would say that they aren't participating in kind of this rebirth of the economy. They're not really getting to see the upside of large employers like CHS and Bridgestone adding employers. So you're not seeing a lot of those dynamics.
people are moving to Nashville.
Yep.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
Tons of people moving to Nashville. This unemployment rate would indicate they're finding jobs. They're moving here and they're finding jobs. Is that right?
I wouldn't go. They're moving here because of the job. They're not moving here to find a job. They're moving here because we can't fill those jobs with the talent pool that's already here in Nashville. I mean, that's really what every employer I know in town is talking about. Hey, we're having to go out and relocating people in Nashville. We're very fortunate that Nashville is an easy place to sell people to come to. So we've got a lot of positive momentum, obviously. But yeah, I mean, those people aren't moving here in hopes of finding a job. They're moving here because they have a job. And so it's a good place. Again, it's a good situation to be. All the folks building apartment complexes, you can't go a corner without finding a new apartment being built.
So then I get back to what they're earning, because these apartments that are going up are very. It seems to me like they're very expensive. They're new, and they're cool. They're very expensive. Are these jobs that are being created able to sustain those kind of payments? Are they able to do that?
Yeah, I assume so. I guess part of it's like the answer is going to be. I think where you're going to see it is savings is going to be. You're going to see more and more folks just being able to kind of break even at good salaries. So I mean, you get into West End, you've got one-bedroom apartments that are $1,750 a month. Well, that's pretty high, and if you're making $40,000 a year, that's probably half of your income. So you just made that lifestyle choice that I want to live somewhere that's kind of cool, and I'm going to pay for that cool factor, and I'm going to have to cut somewhere else. I'm probably not saving and probably not investing, but I mean that's what lots of large cities have done for years and years and years. I think we're just now seeing that. We're catching up to it.
And the big things in Nashville, the jobs, IT,
healthcare. Yep.
What are some? Let's say you were advising somebody. What are some where they're not doing so well? Don't go into that, or don't hold out a great deal of hope. And of course, that's not the way to say it. But what are some of the ones that are lagging behind those higher end ones?
I would, there's kind of the obvious things like retail and restaurant, that kind of work. But I'd even say like construction, which was, kind of stay away from that for years and years. Well, you can look around. There's 20 construction cranes going up, so that's when you're seeing a big influx of people. Really, there's not. I mean, we're very, our economy leverages on some of the really positive things. You got healthcare, you've got education. You got 13 universities here. You got publishing, which is flat, but not, does okay, and you got country music, which is kind of like the, it doesn't create that many jobs, but it still is kind of what people associate with us. So hospitality does well, and so we're kind of in a really, almost ideal scenario. Really in many ways.
And is this as good as when you look back? The 90s were the best. Is that right? Or
That's right.
Among the best.
In my time. Yeah.
Yeah. In our time, the 90s were extraordinary.
Right.
We're
close.
Hitting that now?
We're getting close. You did have states. You have states now that have a 2-point-some%, like I think Nebraska or Wyoming, that has like a 2-point-something unemployment rate. You kind of get to a national average where it's 3.5%. You're literally to that point of going, there's more jobs than there are people. Now you would assume that 0% would be that number, but you've got ebb and flow, and frankly, you do a certain percentage of the populace that's unemployable or lacks a desire to be unemployed. What I'm hoping you'll see are the folks who are, again, these college grads that are underemployed or unemployed at a 30% clip. Opportunities will start emerging for them in entry-level roles with some of these, like in Nashville, some of these companies. We have 300 healthcare companies in town that are based here. The talent pool is only so big for existing people. Companies will start. What you're going to start seeing is companies invest again, like they were in the 90s, in training and development, and going, hey, we're going to have to hire a 25-year-old who doesn't really know much about it, or somebody that's 50 that's transitioning from whatever they did before into this, because they just generally are smart people. But we're going to have to train them on all the skills to do the job. So I think that's what you're starting to see. You'll see more and more of that kind of employer investment in terms of their own pool, because they went 15 years without having to do it. Since 2000 and now, they really haven't had to.
And do you think, it seems like young people, are they doing what they did before, where you get a job right out of college, or does this unemployment rate reflect the fact that maybe they're not taking that route? It used to be, you get a job right out of college and then you're going to stay there a while. It seems like now they're more fluid. Maybe they'll be somewhere a couple of years and maybe they'll totally get out of that business and go do something else. It seems like they're more, I hate to say carefree. That makes me sound like I'm some, I don't know what I don't know what I'm feeling there, but it seems like there's something.
So as a guy who looks at hundreds of resumes a week,
okay, good.
There's maybe and lots of those are young folks, and so you do see, hey, if they've been there somewhere 3 years, you like to go, hey, that was a pretty good stint. You still kind of, I personally will shy away from say every 6 months is doing something new. But really, once they've been there 3 years, you kind of go, that's pretty much their investment period. And they're going to look at either getting moved up or move to another company in the same industry, or to your point, go do something different. Hey, I didn't like doing accounting. Maybe I'll go into sales, and you're seeing, and the only reason that works is because the sales company is going to be, can't find enough salespeople, so they'll kind of look at somebody who have non-traditional backgrounds. And so I think that's just the dynamic of the economy, I think, from this point forward. I think that whole, the last recession, even into the 90s, really corrupted that kind of sense of loyalty between employer and employee.
Right.
And as an employer, you just pretty much have to get right with that, don't you? I mean, that's what the workforce is about. And I would say another 10 or 15 years, you'll see a lot of folks are just independent contractors. Like, I have a skill set. I'm a recruiter, so I'm just going to go become a contractor. I'm not even going to worry about a job. I'm secure in my ability to go from employer to employer. They might be ramping up. They're going to hire me as a recruiter for a year, and then I'm on to my next thing. And I think you're going to start seeing more and more of that kind of freelance, independent contractor, because it benefits both, because employers don't have to commit to an employee, and employees kind of have, they already have this kind of less stickiness and loyalty to their employer anyway.
Interesting. Okay, so I want to hear your stories. What do you think? What is the job situation in your area? Give us a call. There's the number 737+, 615-737-7587. Take a break and take your calls right after this.